I'm joined now by someone who is no stranger to the worlds of Doctor Who, having created the hugely successful series Animax. But he has also made it onto the set of Doctor Who. So I would like to introduce supporting artist Darren Floyd. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Not bad, thank you. As I said, you're a big Doctor Who fan. So how was it to actually make it onto location and be in the series?
It was absolutely brilliant. I just loved every minute of it. I had 2 days on the Jodie Whittaker story, the Spyfall last year, and they initially offered. Well, they say I offered. I was asked if I would be a Nazi officer, and I was like, yeah. And I didn't get that, but then I was up for it again, and I said yes. And we were filming in Howell's Girls' School up in Llandaff, and everyone was it's the nicest shoot I've ever been on. Everyone was just so lovely, and an extra thrill was as well. on the first day we were filming, and we went on lunch, and one of the runners came in and said, Sasha is coming in afterwards as the villain called O. And I was like, everyone was like, that's a weird name for a villain. So he came in, and then he quite soon he was like, "This is my tissue compression eliminator." I was like, "Aha!" And I was like, "Oh, this is incredible!" So so it was really thrilling to be in a shot in a few scenes with not only the Doctor but the Master, and it was quite something to turn up and see Jodie as soon as I kind of walked on set, and they were trying to still kind of conceal the identity. So in the scene where the Master says, get on your knees, in the scene that we shot, Jodie actually calls him Micah, and they redubbed Micah to Master. So you can kind of if you look, you can see that she says Micah as well. And I on the day, I just kind of between takes, I would every once in a while I'd kind of lean over to one of my fellow supporting artists and go like, "We're working on Doctor Who," so it was really thrilling, and it's really quite disgraceful that actually in the scene that you can see me in very, very fleetingly, I shockingly just lean into shot. It's really obvious, and I did it because I could see where the camera was, and I thought, well, I want to get into shot, so I did it every shot, which is terrible, which is a disgrace. But I also wanted to hear what Jodie was saying about the episode. So she was talking about what had happened to the companions and kind of how she couldn't get, she didn't have access to the TARDIS. So I was leaning in and listening to that. So it was just brilliant. 2 days on that, and it's I think hands down the best experience I've had filming it. It was just great.
So obviously, you are there to work, but between takes, are you able to enjoy it and, as you say, sort of realise, this is Doctor Who?
Yeah, well, it's only the kind of second time that I've done it, and I was aware of just what a unique experience it was. Because when I'd filmed it before, I hadn't had a scene with the Doctor, and all the scenes were with the Doctor this time and the Master. So I felt very privileged. So I was kind of drinking everything in. And in fact, there was one point where Jodie came onto set with her dresser, and she said to her dresser, with kind of banter towards the dresser, said, "You're the worst dresser I've ever had." And the dresser said to her, "Thank you, Doctor Who." And Jodie turned to him and went, "It's the Doctor, not Doctor Who." And I kind of went, so it was kind of like turning. I did think, well, I'm just so happy to be in this. And I thought, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone afterwards. I thought, I know a bit of inside knowledge now, but I'm not going to kind of like, it's going to be quite thrilling for people to see it. And, I was taking a few photos as well. But I think it was on the second day when the runners said to the SAs, and in a lovely, lovely way, just said, we're aware that people have been taking photos. That's absolutely fine, but please, if you can, don't post it to social media. We've had previous people doing that, and it's not fair. And they didn't have to do that. They could have just said, no photos. They could have really put their foot down, and they would have been well within their rights to do it. But they were just really sweet and very considerate to the essays. So yeah, I mean, between takes, we could have like, it was a lovely, lovely setting as well where we were. So yeah, I was very mindful to be really aware and kind of like talk to the essays, but of course, be very professional and do the job I was there to do. But at the same time, my inner fan just kind of like, if as a 6-year-old, if you told me one day you'll actually be in, I'd be like, So yeah, it was absolutely great. I loved it.
And of course, your scenes for that were Victorian. You're all inventors. Was it quite nice to do a bit of period work?
Yes, and because the wardrobe was quite extensive as well. Because I had a hat, which I didn't end up wearing. Yeah, it was great to do period piece. The wig that I had fitted apparently was very expensive, and a wardrobe were very concerned that I didn't do anything untowards with the wig. And I had massive old sideburns. And yeah, so it was a lot of work for, basically a few seconds that you're on screen. But you never know kind of like if you're going to be, how much you're going to be used or not. I filmed a day on Sherlock a few years ago, and my friend of mine who was in Animax, Andreas, he was dressed up as a lizard and painted green from head to toe with a tail. He was all day dressed as a lizard, and he was on screen for a second, if that. So, but he might have been featured a bit more. You never know. But yeah, it was good fun to dress up as a Victorian kind of inventor with the massive sideburns and stuff.
And your first encounter with Doctor Who was perhaps a little bit more straightforward as you worked on Lie of the Land.
Yes, and I mentioned that I thought I was going to be. They said when it came through, the request said you'll be playing man in dungarees or man in overalls. And I was thinking, well, that's really mundane. That's not going to be what I am. And I was saying to my wife, oh, I'm going to be like a Zygon or an Ice Warrior or something. It's going to be great. And then when I turned up, there was my overalls to get into, and I was like, oh well, there you go. So then, there was about a dozen of us extras dressed up. So there was not really much kind of like concern with wardrobe. You just had your overalls on, and it was just a matter of kind of scowling and kind of like looking in the right direction. But that was still kind of like thrilling to do that, even though it was in a cold cul-de-sac. But yeah, I mean, when I've talked to other SAs about doing Doctor Who, there is a kind of like a magic about it that, you know, however, you know, even if you're filming on, you know, an industrial estate in Merthyr, if you're filming Doctor Who, it's still kind of like everyone's kind of like a little bit excited, because I think it's got a bit, you know, it's obviously got a longer shelf life. And when I talk to people about kind of like, you know, doing the essay work, when I mention I've been in Doctor Who, there's always a bit of a, you know, people's ears kind of prick up a little bit on that, and it's great to have been in it.
And of course, that first encounter with the show, you had a scene with Pearl Mackie. How was she to work with?
Yeah, she was absolutely lovely, and there's a definite hierarchy on set with SAs, and SAs are absolutely the lowest rung of the ladder, and kind of like we're kind of aware of that, and we're basically just walking props. I was told by one SA that once a runner came up to an extra and said, "Right, I want you to take this package and kind of like give it to him over there." And the SA went, "Well, why would I do that?" And the runner just looked at him, just turned to the other extra and said, "Right, you're taking this package and you're going over there." So yeah, you basically are just kind of, you know, a chair or, you know, a cupboard or something like that. You're not really essential. And so as a, you know, normally the talent, the actors don't really talk to the SAs. Everyone's there to do a job. And when we filmed with Pearl Mackie, it was in the afternoon, and energy levels were starting to kind of dip a little bit. But she turned up on set, and she was just really lovely. She was talking to the SAs, you know, asking everyone how their day had been. They were enjoying it, and kind of you could feel everyone's energy kind of raise a bit, and people were pretty happy. You know, people were happy that the actors were kind of one of the actors, some of the talent were actually, you know, talking to us. I've done Poldark before, and Aidan Turner, you know, was talking to the SAs as well. I mean, it sounds like a tiny thing, but it can be quite meaningful if you're just kind of like, if you're standing in a wet cul-de-sac in Grangetown for 3-4 hours, you know. So yeah, she was really lovely, and I thought she was really great on screen as well. It's a shame she didn't get another season, I think, but yeah, she was lovely to work with.
And then a project that you developed yourself and also had more control over was Animax. How did that initially come about?
Well, it's not been a moment in my life that I haven't been a Doctor Who fan. I've loved it since day one, since birth, but my enthusiasm for it kind of like wax and wane. Sometimes I'm kind of like hugely into it, and other times I'm just, you know, it's kind of running there. And there's other times that I've kind of like been more involved and more enjoying the actual social fandom aspect of it. And when I tell my norm friends, my friends who are not they're not Doctor Who fans, I tell them about the kind of the politics and the rivalries, and you know, they'd find it hilarious. Well, they said they find it hilarious anyway, but they'd certainly laugh at kind of like what was going on. And it is, as hopefully a self-aware fan, you know, I acknowledge just how ridiculous it is being into this show, this wonderful kind of mad show that we're into. So I wanted to kind of like put a few of these experiences into a kind of a sitcom, and Ed Sinclair is a very talented director. He kind of got the joke immediately. So yeah, we set that up with Sean Carlson, who's in a lot of the Big Finish audios, and Brian Smith and Andreas, a friend of ours. And yeah, it was just huge fun, hard work, but great fun. And yeah, we did 2 series of that, and we set up our own convention so that we could film at it, and had Louise Jameson and Matthew Walthouse as guest stars.
So that must have been fantastic to bring in these people that, you know, as a child you were looked up to into your projects.
Yes, it was great, and they kind of got the joke, got the idea. Louise especially was great, and the actors loved working with her. Matthew was a bit more eccentric. He gave a kind of quite a broad performance on the day, I think, and he was making some interesting suggestions. But it was great to kind of like have them there, and kind of like through that, I got to know Andrew Cartmel, who's an absolute sweetheart, lovely guy, and I really love his Vinyl Detective books, which are well worth checking out. And I got to talk to Chris Achilleos, who I was because I paint myself, and loved his work since I was tiny. So it's thrilling to actually kind of be involved in something like that. And one of the things I wanted to do with Animax is I wanted it to be affectionate and not kind of sneery, because I wanted it to acknowledge just kind of like how funny these things are that we get involved in, but not look down our nose upon fellow fans, because we all enjoy different aspects of the series in different ways. There's some things that my fellow fans enjoy which I just don't understand, and on the other side I've got a unbelievable amount of Doctor Who action figures. I've got more Colin Baker action figures that any grown man should have. I mean, you could really argue that a grown man shouldn't have one Colin Baker action figure, but and that I would kind of think that would be not unreasonable. But so I wanted it to be affectionate with a good heart, and I think that's what we did.
And the series very quickly seemed to develop quite a following. Did that take you by surprise?
Yeah, I think people kind of like picked up on what we were doing and really enjoyed it, and I think kind of like became invested in the characters as well. So it was really pleasing to see that people enjoyed it, and could understand where we were coming from on that. And actually one of the biggest compliments we had was that more than once people said, is this scripted? Or I was like, because it just seems that there's a kind of like stream of consciousness that kind of like, no, it's absolutely scripted. And some friends of mine, again, who are not Doctor Who fans, kind of like picked up on kind of like what the references were, where it came from, and kind of found it pretty funny. So it did take me by surprise that the following that it got, but I was very flattered by that as well, because there's a whole part of the second series which does deal with one of the characters becoming an SA in the series and getting a talking part, which is kind of every time an SA gets a line, inevitably all the rest of the essays are like, they're really, really jealous because you get paid more if you get a line. So like, oh, look at you getting a line. So I kind of worked that into the series, the kind of like slightly passive aggressive, kind of like, oh, I'm really happy for you. Are you? No. So yeah, it was a good thing to do. I really enjoyed it. Hard work, but great, very collaborative.
And away from Doctor Who, you're also a painter and a writer. How do
Yes.
those two sort of mix in with this world of Doctor Who and the essay work?
It doesn't really kind of work into the Doctor Who stuff. I've got a novel coming out possibly November, maybe April time, but it's certainly going to be out in the next 8 months. And I'm working on a series of novels that are partly inspired by The Vinyl Detective by Andrew Cartmel. So I think that the painting, because the painting is very kind of abstract and kind of fine arty, and it's not really connected to the Doctor Who stuff, but I think it is kind of the writing and the painting is connected in some way to the SA stuff, because what I really love about doing the support artist stuff is that every SA has got a story, and every SA has got a project that they're working on, and you just meet some wonderful, lovely people, and I'm constantly surprised at what people are doing. Pretty much every SA is either a musician or a writer or an artist, and it's always great to talk to them, and that people. I mean, I certainly do the SA stuff as a bit of a giggle, as a bit of a laugh, but you get other SAs that are doing it as a kind of valuable experience to get into acting, because I think if that is an area that you want to go into, or if you want to go into the production side, just actually being on set and seeing the mechanics of how a set works is, it's fascinating. And if you want to go into that side of things, it's a good, it's a good experience to have. Because what I've basically learned is, don't bump into the cameras and stay, make sure that you don't walk into the talent. That's pretty much it, really. And don't be the first one at the lunch table. There's definitely a pecking order, So so they're kind of like loose connections there, I guess.
Well, on those fantastic, I think, life lessons as well, I think that's a very good point to say. Thank you very much for your time, Darren.
It was an absolute pleasure. Nice to talk to you, Alex.